All right, so this week we're going to be talking about special populations. We're not going to go into, if you haven't pulled up the PowerPoint yet, we're not going to talk about which populations because I got a question for you. Here we go. So, got to move this. Imagine you're an endurance athlete that learned of a training program that could increase blood volume by 150%, increase red blood cell mass by 20%, increase plasma volume by 45%, cardiac output by 50%, heart size, tidal volume, blah, 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 all those. Would you use it in training for a marathon? I think most of us on seeing these numbers would say yes, absolutely. But let's move on to the next slide and see if you're going to change your answer. It is pregnancy. That is the answer. So all those occur with pregnancy. Okay. So obviously some of us don't have that option, but even those of us that do, maybe we wouldn't do that just to improve our endurance performance. All right. So we're going to talk about pregnancy first. That's the first main special topic that we're going to be talking about, or special populations, I should say. So as most of you probably know, there's a lot of changes physiologically and anatomically that occur during pregnancy, broken up by trimesters, which is just a 3-month period. So first trimester, I have a lot of hormonal changes and fluctuations, and this is accompanied by extreme fatigue. So obviously that's going to affect in our desire to exercise. Pregnancy causes typically to feel lethargic and nauseous. Probably all you guys have heard about morning sickness. Can actually alleviate morning sickness in certain instances. So that's first trimester. Second trimester, fetus grows in the abdomen. So obviously that produces its own set of challenges just from an anatomical standpoint. We obviously have our females that are pregnant with a large abdomen, which causes some potential back pain. It changes their balance. Edema in the legs is pretty typical, or swelling, fluid buildup and swelling in the legs. And then bouts of standing are going to trigger even more edema. So exercise, again, one of the benefits seems to relieve this edema or the swelling in the legs, and is going to provide some other benefits that we're going to talk about here in a second. So third trimester, fetus continues to grow, obviously, puts more pressure on the mother's organs and structures. Then we have a risk for hemorrhoids and varicose veins as the weight gain increases. And also the weight gain causes some strain on heart and lungs. And this can be obviously an issue when it comes to exercise. Okay. So the benefits of exercise during pregnancy, one of the main benefits is it promotes that healthy weight gain. So women are going to gain weight during their pregnancy, and rightfully so. They should be gaining weight. I'm not sure what average weight of a woman in America is, but here we can see average weight gain is about 25 to 35 pounds. So obviously some women are going to gain more, some are going to be less, but that's about average. So exercise can help us stay in that healthy weight gain category, because I think we all know that even during pregnancy, it's not healthy just to blow up and gain 100 pounds. Okay. So it minimizes that fat mass gain. And also benefits of exercise. I mean, this is pretty straightforward as far as any population, but especially pregnant women, we're going to preserve our muscle mass, which is huge, our bone mass as well, and our strength. Okay. Improve circulation. So there we can see increases blood volume, cardiac output, blood vessel numbers. So that's going to help, like we said, that's going to dramatically help our edema or the swelling in the legs, so we don't have a pooling of those fluids down low. Functioning of the lymphatic system, again, minimizing the edema. Okay. More benefits, got a lot of benefits of exercise here during pregnancy. Reduces overall discomfort and improves mood. I think we've all at least been through some kind of exercise regimen or session that improves our overall mood. So that's still going to be the case during pregnancy. It's going to help with our back pain, our stiff joints, constipation, bloating, insomnia. Obviously, that's assuming we have a sound and safe training program. Maintain our joint range of motion, which is going to be huge, obviously, during pregnancy, especially last trimester. Women tend to not move around quite as much as they probably were prior to pregnancy. So exercise is going to help maintain those joints that aren't getting that typical range of motion. Improves mood. I already talked about that. I probably should just delete it up here. This one is I would say is actually new to me when I was doing some research with the benefits of exercise during pregnancy. It's going to ease pregnancy, labor, and delivery. So I think it was pretty straightforward that it's going to ease the cardiorespiratory fatigue of labor. Just because our cardiorespiratory system, if we continue to exercise, is going to be maintained. But it actually decreases the actual length of labor, which that was something that was surprising to me. But it makes sense thinking about it, both cardiovascularly and from a strength standpoint, because we're gonna either maintain or improve our strength in our muscles, in our skeletal muscle mass, which is just going to help with our actual or with the delivery. Okay, few more benefits: less pain and soreness during and following delivery. I think that's pretty straightforward as far as if we continue to exercise and use our muscles, we're going to probably not be as sore. Just like if you go from a sedentary individual to and put them through a training program, they're probably going to be sore at first. Same thing with women that don't exercise during pregnancy, and then all of a sudden they go through this very serious process of delivery, of labor, then they're probably going to be sore. Again, another surprising one: mothers who exercise require less pain medication. That's something that I haven't found out exactly why, but it was something that was surprising to me. And also they undergo induced labor or any other type of medical intervention less often. So more often traditional labor. Okay. And then I'm not going to read through all these, but there are going to be some contraindications to aerobic exercise during pregnancy. Relative contraindications are just, it's probably not a good idea, but it's not saying that any one of these you cannot exercise at all. Just probably not a good idea. Whereas absolute contraindications you should not do these. You should not do aerobic exercise, period. Okay. So let me see. These two slides and the next one's moving forward: warning signs to terminate exercise. If you're pregnant, if you have a partner that's pregnant, a friend, anyone like that, they need to be working with a medical professional, both, throughout pregnancy, but also when it comes to exercise, before they're pregnant, or when they find out they're pregnant, and then during the whole pregnancy, and including after. They need to work with a medical professional. So these are going to be some things that you don't need to memorize, because that's something that a medical professional should advise, but something you should be aware of if you decide to work with pregnant or populations that could potentially be pregnant. So conclusions and recommendations. So recreational and competitive athletes with uncomplicated pregnancies, so that's typically individuals that don't have these contraindications. So recreational and competitive athletes that have uncomplicated pregnancies can remain active, but they should modify their exercise routine as medically indicated. Again, as recommended by their OB. I don't know if it would be OB/GYN, but I'm not sure what that is. I should know. Sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but their pregnancy doctor. Okay. The information as far as research on strenuous exercise is scarce. So work with your medical professional if you're in this situation, but there are going to be a lot of anecdotal a lot of anecdotal evidence regarding people who perform strenuous exercise while pregnant. Just keep in mind that's anecdotal, that's not research. So what works for one person might not work for the general population or in other populations. I think we are learning that as we move forward with this class. So just keep that in mind. And we'll see some videos later on of some anecdotal evidence. So previously inactive women or those with some kind of medical complications should be evaluated before physical activity or before recommendations for physical activity are made. So potentially, this is unfortunate, but if there's an inactive woman and she gets pregnant and then she wants to have a healthier labor, baby, delivery, etc., maybe she's going to have some contraindications, so she can't start working out until after delivery. So one potential reason why you want to be at least physically active prior to pregnancy. All right. Let's see, and you can read that, and then here are the videos I was talking about. You can just see that, again, this isn't saying that all pregnant women are good to do CrossFit, all pregnant women are good to weightlift, but it's just showing that it is possible for pregnant women to continue strenuous exercise, and obviously much different realms here as well. Okay, and then these I want you to read on your own or just take a look through. You don't have to look up the actual articles, but you can see here, I just broke it down essentially based on, very similar to our article reviews, purpose, design, or methodology, results, and conclusion. Okay, and there's another one here, same thing, purpose, methods, results, conclusion. Okay, so our second main population, special population, is older adults. Older adults, okay, another special population that if you're going to go, I do want you to know some general principles, which we're going to cover today. But if you're going to go into working with older adults, this is something that you need to really focus in on the research with those individuals. Okay. So older adults, hold on, I gotta hit pause real quick. Let me plug in my computer. About to die here. Oh, let's see. All right. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so older adults are the least active portion of the population when it comes to both aerobic and strength training, according to the CDC. Now that's from 2011, but I can't guarantee it, but I can probably say that it's probably pretty accurate still. And older adults are also the fastest growing portion of the US population. Okay. And you can see they're over 90 greater than 90 years old, triple over the past 3 decades. And that leads to a lot of medical costs. So again, if you want to get into some kind of strength conditioning, physical therapy, occupational therapy, there are a lot of opportunities with geriatric populations and older adults. So I think you guys know this, but as we age, we're going to lose some height, unfortunately, and we're going to gain some weight. This typically happens in our 30s and 40s. And the gain weight is typically body fat. I mean, not often that people are putting on muscle mass as they get older, unless they're using some extra supplements. So typically lose height, gain weight. Then we start to lose our bone mass. And depending on how much we lose, it's either osteopenia or osteoporosis. And then also as we get older, we start to lose our muscle mass, which is termed sarcopenia. So obviously all those are not necessarily beneficial, but we're going to find out there are some things we can do to either slow the aging process or at least maintain our muscle mass, bone mass, etc. There you can see a few different risks of death. Low fitness level being one of the top ones. Then cigarette smoking, systolic blood pressure, cholesterol, obesity. These are, well, 4 out of the 5 can be potentially altered by physical activity. Cigarette smoking, either you do or you don't. But the other ones can be slightly altered by physical activity and nutrition dramatically. All right, so some physiologic responses to exercise in older adults. So as we can see, there's an age-related loss of muscle strength. And that's just like we said, that's probably due to a loss of muscle mass. So we essentially just lose a certain percentage of our muscle mass each decade after we turn 25. Okay, we just start going downhill. And there's going to be variations in that depending on your genetics, how much physical activity you're doing, you've done, etc. But then it leads us to ask the question, what about muscle type? So again, when we're talking about type 1, we're talking about more slow twitch, low force, higher endurance muscle fibers. Type 2 are going to be those faster twitch, higher force output. So what about muscle type, muscle fiber type? Our type 2 fibers are going to be, we're just going to be less active. I mean, you can think about it. I was actually randomly, I don't know why, maybe I was subconsciously thinking about this presentation, but I was thinking about it the other night, driving through my neighborhood and seeing some people and thinking, when's the last time he's sprinted in his life? Typical 40, 50-year-old male. I mean, I don't know how long that would be. It potentially could be decades for a regular adult male or female. They don't participate in sprinting, jumping, any kind of high power output, high force output activities. Okay, so that leads us to the question, do those muscle fibers basically convert to type 1 because we don't use them? Not sure. And then maximal strength also steadily decreases with aging. And I think probably if any of us have met our grandparents and been around our grandparents, simple things like moving a chair for them, opening a jar lid, you can see picking up a gallon of milk can be challenging to them. So obviously that loss of muscle mass isn't just a looks thing, it leads to some strength issues. So what's going on? We talked about it. There might be a decrease in our type 2 motor neurons, and maybe that's because we're not using them, so they atrophy and die. We're not really sure. Maybe a reinnervation by our type 1 motor neurons. And then there's a decrease in size in both type 1 and 2 muscle fibers. Okay. So our physiological responses, so endurance training does not lessen this decrease in muscle mass and muscle strength. Okay, resistance training is what's going to really reduce the decrease or maybe even lead to some increases in muscle mass. And as we probably know, there is a positive correlation between muscle mass, cross-sectional area, and the strength of a muscle. Okay, so typically as muscle mass increases, muscle strength increases as well. So that's only going to be affected by resistance training. Not to say endurance training is bad, but resistance training is going to be the main thing that lessens our loss of muscle mass and muscle strength. Okay. There also are some changes in the nervous system with older adults, and you can read through these, but typically resistance training and physical activity, endurance training as well, can help reduce this loss of nervous system activity. Okay, so that's a big benefit of both types of resistance and aerobic training. Cardiovascular system also gets hit when we come to aging. Our cardiovascular function is going to decrease, and it's likely due to a decrease in max heart rate. And there you can see, why does our heart rate max decrease? Well, it's probably going to be some morphological changes. So that's actual physical changes in the cardiovascular system, or the heart. Gosh darn. And then probably there's going to be some changes in the electrical activity with the heart as well. Okay, and there you can see it's possibly a decreased sensitivity to catecholamine. Not positive, but probably. So stroke volume. So remember, cardiac output. Gosh, I'm not sure if we covered this in this class, but cardiac output equals heart rate times stroke volume. So our heart rate goes down, it's probably going to lead to a decrease in our cardiac output. The good thing is we can maintain the stroke volume. And remember, stroke volume is the amount of blood that's pumped with each pump of the heart. Okay, so we can maintain stroke volume. So our cardiac output will decrease, but that's due to a decrease in heart rate. Stroke volume can be maintained. Okay, and there you can see that cardiac output is going to decrease, which is going to lead to our VO2 max decreasing. Okay. All right. So strength training. Aging does not appear to impair the ability to improve strength or hypertrophy. What does this mean? So essentially, we can still see increases in both strength and hypertrophy at the same rate in older adults as younger adults. Okay, obviously it's got to be the right training program, we got to have the right nutrition, all that good stuff. But what it's saying is you can still maintain your muscle mass and consequently your strength with resistance training in older adults. So there we can see some benefits of resistance training. Reduce the loss in muscle mass. We can actually increase muscle mass, we just said. Help our balance, stride length, walking speed. So it's going to help us not to fall. Okay. Again, assuming we're doing a sound training program, we're with a coach that knows how to work with older adults. We can maintain our range of motion, especially if we stretch after, and we can actually reduce the effects of osteoporosis. So as I think a lot of us know, resistance training done the right way can lead to increases in our bone mass. So we can either maintain our bone mass or possibly even increase our bone mass with resistance training in older adults. Aerobic training. Okay, so aerobic training. So our heart rate max is going to go down, which is going to lead to a decrease in our cardiac output, which again is going to lead to a decrease in VO2 max. So it's basically a succession. Heart rate max goes down, cardiac output goes down, VO2 max goes down. But in older adults, we can again lessen the decline in VO2 max, or in people that really haven't trained before, older adults, you can actually increase your VO2 max. Okay, so it's very similar situation to strength and hypertrophy. If you have an individual that has essentially already genetically peaked out their strength and hypertrophy, or they're very high, with aging, they are going to decrease, but they can slow that decrease in muscle mass and strength. It's very similar to VO2 max. VO2 max, if somebody has a very high VO2 max, aging, they can do all the training in the world and they're going to still, that VO2 max is going to slowly drop. Okay. But if you have individuals that are untrained, they can actually increase their VO2 max with aerobic training. In older adults, I'm talking about. Same thing with older adults that have never done resistance training before. If they've never done it before, they're essentially a beginner, even though they're older, but they can increase their muscle mass and strength above their baseline level. Okay. So there you can see the benefits of aerobic training in older adults. Okay. Precautions for training. Again, just like pregnancy, if you're an older adult or you have somebody that is an older adult, wants to train, parent, grandparent, uncle, aunt, whatever, friend, they should be working with a medical professional to make sure everything's good prior to starting training and then throughout training. But some precautions that us as professionals in the kinesiology field can take when it comes to training older adults. Got to make sure their diet is on point, especially protein. Okay. Balance exercises are going to be huge because obviously we said before, falling is one of the biggest issues when it comes to older adults. Holding the breath, that can be very important, especially when it comes to individuals with higher blood pressure. Okay, make sure they're not holding their breath. That Valsalva maneuver, where you basically build a air pocket in your abdomen for stability, it's going to be something we probably want to avoid. Range of motion. So if we have any joints that have been injured or painful, we have to work around those. Grip bars, equipment, maybe this population machines are better. Not saying they always are, but maybe that's a good option. And then previous injuries. How much exercise? There you can see based on the ACSM and American Health Association recommendation, aerobic activity, minimum 30 minutes, 5 days a week of moderate activity exercises. Okay, but there you can see older adults should exceed those minimum recommendations. And then resistance training, 2 days per week. There you can see 8 to 10 exercises, 10 to 15 reps. Those are just general guidelines. Another table just comparing healthy adults with older adults as far as types of training and what maybe they should do. Okay, so there you can take a look through that. Come on. Special considerations, just like with our pregnant population, there are some special considerations that you should be working with a medical professional, but as professionals, kinesiology professionals, we should at least be aware of these. Okay, so hot environment, sedentary individuals, so individuals that are going from no training to training, we have to really watch out for them because they have reduced sweat output, so they're not going to sweat as much, which is essentially their internal body temperature is going to increase. Reduce skin blood flow, so again, they're not going to dissipate that heat as much. So we have to seriously watch out for older adults that go to train in hotter environments. Okay, in those that are endurance trained, we don't see any major issues in older adults as compared to younger adults. Okay, and then cold environment, we do have to again be cognizant of the fact that older adults are probably not gonna do as well in colder environments. This probably due to reduced muscle mass, so they can't generate heat as much. There you can see possibly due to their peripheral vasculature can't constrict as well. Okay, but they're usually smart enough. I mean, older adults have lived a little while, so they're usually smart enough to wear the proper clothing, but that usually is italicized in bold because not always the case. Okay, nutritional considerations. So we have to watch out for these in older adults. So let's see, decrease in calories consumed, which different studies show different things, but essentially if you maintain, or older adults maintain their protein intake, especially lean protein, fish, chicken, they can maintain their muscle mass and even increase their muscle mass. But if we put them through a resistance training program and they're not getting enough protein, just like with the younger adults, they're not going to recover as much. They might start actually breaking down their muscle. We have to, worry a little bit about income during retirement. So maybe they can't afford as good of food. Not really sure. Potentially supplementing with creatine and beta alanine would be beneficial. There are some studies that have shown that, especially creatine, but maybe older adults don't have the money or don't really know. So that's again something we could potentially inform them on. And then developing programs. So I I guess it's with all populations, but we want to try and avoid injury, but especially older adults. We're just going to take recovery is going to be so much longer. So it's better to start conservative and then develop the program and get more complicated later on. But start way too easy. I mean, to the point where it might be something basic to younger adults, like stand up from a chair, sit down 10 times, and then walk to the coffee table and back 20 times or something like that. And that's enough for them. So just start conservative. But there you can see, be careful, excuse me, of the loss of range of motion. I mean, injury history is one of the biggest things with older adults as well. Make sure you're on the same page with injuries, with joints that have pain as well. But this video here, you can see there's even a 70-year-old that still does powerlifting. So again, that's anecdotal evidence that older adults can continue training and doing the things they love. They might have to adjust their programming, like maybe he has to take a few days off in between. I haven't watched a full video in a while, so I'm not sure, but that's just something that would need to be worked around. Okay, then we can see there is, I think we all know this, but there is a master's class athlete that you can see at age 40, it starts to be a master's athlete. And I mean, there are some athletes, especially, I mean, these days with nutrition, training, etc., that older adults can continue training and doing quite well at an older age. These are 100-year-old records from 100 years old. So to you and I, it might seem pretty slow, but it's pretty darn good for 100 years old. But you can see, just look up some of the records for these categories, and I think you would be surprised at how good they are. And then again, it got a couple articles for you guys to read on your own, or you can just read through the purpose, methodology, results, conclusions, etc. that I put on here. But those are our 2 populations for the day. I know it's a bit scattered, but hopefully you guys were able to follow it, to see that, I mean, physical activity, we know it. We just got to educate the outside world that physical activity for all populations, special populations or not, is very beneficial. The earlier we can start physical activity and maintain some level of physical activity, that's going to be so beneficial for not only our body, but also our mind as well. Okay, so let me know if you guys got questions.